Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us. My name is Amanda Meyer, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator at Estimating Edge. And today, John Mitchell, who is our Training and Technical Support Specialist, will be covering zones. Before we get started, we have a couple housekeeping items. All lines have been muted, and we will answer questions after the webinar. To ask a question, enter them into the question window. John, next slide, please. Thank you very much. We will be sending an email that has the recorded link, and it's also available on our website. When you leave today, there will be a pop-up window with a 3-question survey. We'd love to hear your feedback. And also, don't forget to sign up for next month's webinar. It's on Admin Portal Review on September 18th. Thank you again for joining us. John, let's get started.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zones webinar. We here at Estimating Edge are very happy to be presenting zones as it is a new feature of the Edge. There are a few things we want you to take away from this webinar, and those things are: what are zones, how to draw zones, rules for creating zones, and how zones affect pricing, labor, and reports. These 3 things are about the creation of the zones, and this is the end result. This is what you're shooting for when you do create zones. So there are a couple of examples of what you would use zones for, and one of them is to find all of the materials to stock for a particular zone. And one of the other things might be to find out what your expected labor might be for that particular zone. So let's get started by telling you what zones are. I've got a little sentence here that I've written down. Zones are individual physical and logical pieces of an overall estimate, each piece with its own set of pricing, labor, recap, and reports. In other words, it is an estimate that has been broken into pieces. So I've got an estimate here. It's a drywall estimate and acoustic ceiling tile, but I want to tell you that zones works just as well for the standard roofing conditions. Okay, so we're going to move forward on this estimate. We've got one scenario, one section. We're going to move forward from there, and we have 2 pages. The first page has all the interior and exterior partitions, and it's got a count condition for door buck studs. And the second page only has one condition, and that is an area condition for acoustic ceiling tiles. Now, I want you to pay attention to these plus signs right here. These are important. We're going to be coming back to those. When the webinar is over and you're trying zones out for yourself, you won't see these plus signs necessarily until you make them appear. They are a column, and so I'm going to come over here to what I call the column picker, and this is the column. If I undo that, the plus signs go away. If I fill it in, there are the plus signs. So we will be coming back to this. Remember that the plus signs are there. So let's actually get started creating some zones. I'll go forward on page 1. Here are my conditions. You see they're all green, which means this estimate has been priced out and I've adjusted the labor and all of that. So I've done the takeoff. Okay, zones are created on the takeoff screen. So I'm going to click on takeoff, and it opened on another screen, so I'll drag it over. And I'm going to minimize the main program down to the taskbar just so it doesn't pop up accidentally while I'm doing my presentation here. So this is a first floor plan. This blue room right here is the file room in this building, and it's got 2-hour fire rated board around it. So I'm going to create a zone on this room. And I'm going to do that. You see this word zones right here? This is what we call a node. I'm going to click it to draw my first zone. Let me zoom in on that room real quick first. Now, before I click the node zones, I want to point out that there are some measuring tools here on this vertical toolbar that will be going away. And when I click zones, a new tool will appear right down in here called Create Zone. So I'm going to click it. There's my tool, Create Zone. And I'm just going to draw a zone around the file room here. I don't need to go all the way back to the starting point and click there. I can just tap on the Enter button on my keyboard, which is what I'm about to do here. So it opens this window. The first thing I'm going to do is give this zone a title. I'm going to call it 2-hour fire rated. And I like to change the color of my zone, so I'll do that. I'll click that button there, and I'll make it a nice blue color, and I'll say OK. Now, the line at the border of the zone is a little bit wider than I want, so I'm going to thin it down a little bit, so I'll make it a 15. But before I click Save, I want to point out one thing, and that is that you don't see an expansion point next to zones. You will see it when I click Save. The expansion point is this little point that you see on these things that allow you to expand and contract. So I'm going to click Save. Now you see the expansion point. I'm going to click the expansion point, and it tells us the name of the zone. I'm going to click the expansion point again, and it shows us the conditions that are within that zone. Currently, there's only one condition in this zone, and that's the 2-hour fire-rated partition. Okay, so we're ready to do our second zone. I'm going to fit to screen here. What I'm going to do is click the tool again to create another zone, and I'm going to click up about here. Now, I'm going to deliberately cause an infraction of a rule for creating zones. And that rule is you cannot intersect one zone with another. You can't make a zone fall within another. I'm going to deliberately cause an error message here. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to tap on the Enter button just so you can see it. There is the message. The zone intersects with another. That's a no-no. The edge won't let you do that. So we click OK, and my attempt at creating the second zone has gone away. So I'm back to the drawing board on the second zone. I'm going to click the tool again. I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to come down to about here. I'm going to turn snap off here. And where am I? Okay. Just want to make sure where I am. I want to come down to about maybe right here, and I'll come over here, and I'm going to tap on the Enter button, and I'm going to call this one the Northeast Zone. And I'll make that, I don't know, fuchsia. And I'll say OK, and thin down that border line, and say Save. There is my second zone. Now my next zone, I'm going to put over in here. I want to include as much of my measurements here as I can possibly include without intersecting with this zone. Now, how am I going to do that? I can actually touch the line of a zone. I just can't intersect the zone. So the way I'm going to do it is snap to the segment terminator or segment terminators of the northeast zone there. I'll have to zoom in a little bit to make sure that I'm snapping right there. Okay, I'm going to zoom back out. I'm using the scroll wheel on my mouse to zoom in and out. And I'm going to come up here and tap on the enter button. So we're ready for the northwest zone. Northwest zone. We'll change the color. I'll go with green. And make that a 15. So we have included as much of these measurements as can possibly be included. Let me zoom in a little bit again, because I want to show you that before zones came along, we had a multi-select tool that would let you multi-select an area. But if you touched a lineal foot measurement or an area measurement, it would include that entire line or area shape. With zones, you're actually intersecting, or not intersecting, but bisecting a line or an area shape. So we've bisected this line and this line and this line and all these lines here, and this part will fall in the northeast zone. So this part of this line will definitely fall in the northeast zone, and this part over here will fall in the northwest zone. So let me fit to screen again. The next, there is another rule I want to tell you about, and that zones live on pages. So the zones cannot be copied from one page to another page. They have to stay on the one page that they've been created on. So let me show you another nifty little trick here. I'm going to create zone. I'm going to create one zone for this auditorium and this room that I'm calling the rotunda. Even though they're both on opposite sides of this floor plan, I'm going to create a zone. I've got snap on again. I'll turn that off. And I'm going to create this zone. I guess I'll include about that much. Call it good on the auditorium. And I will tap on the enter button. And I'm going to call this auditorium and rotunda. And I guess I'll keep it at yellow. No big deal. Now I'm going to draw a zone around the rotunda here. And I'm going to tap on the enter button. And I'm going to, instead of calling it the rotunda and clicking save, I'm going to fill in this radio button next to existing. And I'm going to choose from this drop-down list right here, I'm going to choose auditorium and rotunda. Now when I click save, it'll put the name auditorium and rotunda, and this is all one zone, even though it's two different shapes on the opposite side of this floor plan. Okay, let's move on to the second floor. I'm going to click here, and there's my acoustic ceiling tile on the second floor, and I'm going to draw a zone. I'm going to deliberately cut through this count condition. This is a speaker in the acoustic ceiling tile. That's what these things are. So I'm going to come down to about here and come over and come up to here, and I'm just going to hit enter and call this zone 1 real quick here. Zone 1. I don't care if it's yellow. I'll put it at a 15. 15. And I'll click save. Then I'll create zone 2. And I will snap to the segment terminator there. and the segment terminator here, and I'll come all the way up here and tap on the enter button, and I'll call this zone 2 and make it a different color. I'll make it red, and I'm going to click OK. So what you see here, I have on this second floor, I have covered the entire takeoff, the entire measurements that I've got here. So I should be at 100% when we show you that. I also wanted to point out that I plowed right through this count right here, this speaker. It's not going to give me half of a speaker in zone 2 and the other half of the speaker in zone 1. It's going to make the speaker fall in one of those zones or the other, probably the one that has the most of what I have. Boy, that's pretty close to the center. I'm guessing it's going to come into this zone now. You would want to check that after you've driven through a count condition. So that is another rule. You can't dissect a count condition. Just like a roofer wouldn't want half a roof drain on one zone and another half on another zone. Okay, so we're done with the takeoff portion of this demonstration. I'm going to minimize that and open the main program here. And I want to come back to pages. Remember where the plus signs were? Well, we're going to look at them now. So I'm going to click this plus sign to expand floor number 1, and you see the zones that fall within zone number 1. That column needs to be spreaded out a little bit there. There we go. So I'm going to click the plus sign here, and you see the zones on the other one. You see how it's at 100% on the second floor? It's because we covered the entire takeoff measurements there, the entire acoustic ceiling, whereas we didn't cover the entire thing over here. Now, you might be wondering, if we cut this estimate up into pieces, can we go look at the entire estimate? Well, sure you can. The way you're going to do that is by just not marking anything here. Don't mark any of the zones. Just, you can go to the recap right now and see that this estimate is at 283,000 and some change here. And if we mark a zone, then we go to the recap screen. That's the auditorium and rotunda. It's at 45,725. Let's go back to pages and see if we can mark multiple zones. Well, of course we can. Recap, 58,400. Well, it's the same. If we wanted to see just the materials for one zone or multiple zones, we could go to the pricing screen on that one zone, and we're seeing just the materials for the auditorium and rotunda. It's the same for the labor screen and the recap screen, but the real pièce de résistance, I guess, here is reports, because we can print a stocking report for any zone or multiple zones by clicking there. We've got the auditorium and rotunda selected. So this is the stocking report for the auditorium and rotunda only. Okay, that's a real very useful thing to have, is a stocking report for a zone. We're thinking that everyone is going to want to use this. Okay, I think I'll just summarize everything I've pointed out here. we have, I've told you what zones are. Zones are individual physical and logical pieces of an overall estimate. It's an estimate that has been broken into pieces. There are rules. These are the rules. You cannot copy and paste a zone from one page to another. You can't intersect zones. Count conditions cannot be dissected in half. Zones will not include entered quantities. Yeah, let me point that out. Back, let me go forward on pages here to the condition list. And I want to point out that these general conditions have entered quantities. Entered quantities, even overridden quantities, will not be included in a zone. Okay? So that should just about cover everything. I'm going to come to the takeoff screen and point this out. You should all see this. If you're not seeing the node called zone on your bid tree on the takeoff screen, perhaps you're not on the latest release of version 12, and you should be. So you can click on this gray gear to go to the administration portal and click on App Download and install it from there. Okay, we're thinking that all of you will want to use zones. It's a very useful tool. We're hoping you'll use it right after this webinar and let us know how you like it. So that's it for the Zones webinar. I'm going to pass it over to Amanda.
Thank you again, John. Let's get started on some audience questions. We have one question so far, and it is, can we delete a zone?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The way you'll delete a zone is you've got to be clicked on the page name here, and you can just click in the zone, just like you would click in an area, and you just right-click and delete shape. And when it's gone from the takeoff screen, zone 2 will also be gone from the main program in pages here. Zone 2 is gone, and it's now at 48% instead of 100. Okay?
All righty, John. And I think that, oh, we got another one. Hold on.
Okay.
He says, I'm running 12.6, but still do not see zones on drawing screen. Can you maybe go through one more time on how to go through that?
Well, yeah, I overheard someone in the background say close out of the program and open it back up. That's the first thing I would do, is close the program and open it back up. If you're still not seeing the zone node, perhaps it just needs to be turned on, and I think we here in tech support will need to do that for people that don't see the zone node. Or perhaps you should go to pages and make sure those plus signs are there. Maybe this will make it appear by filling this in. I'm thinking that might help. But if they're still not seeing zones, we can certainly turn it on for anyone in tech support. Okay?
All righty. Oh, one more.
Okay.
Can you get total percent value for each zone as completed to the entire job? Compared to the entire job?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood that. Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, I can repeat that. Can you get total percent value for each job as compared to the entire job?
Total percent value for the complete job instead of looking at the entire job. I'm really not sure what the answer is to that question. So I suggest that we know the person's name that asked the question and their contact information, and we will get back to them after the webinar. Okay?
All righty, will do.
Okay.
Thank you again, everyone, for watching. and have a great day.
All right.